Have you ever stopped to wonder why our weeks have 7 days, or why we divide the year into 12 months? The answers lie buried in the sands of ancient civilizations, where astronomers and priests first mapped the heavens to create the foundations of modern timekeeping. Picture this: over 4,000 years ago, Babylonian sky watchers tracked the movements of the moon, dividing its cycles into 4 7-day segments, a system so enduring it still shapes our lives today. But this is just one thread in a vast tapestry of human ingenuity. From the pyramids of Egypt to the temples of the Maya, ancient cultures developed astonishingly precise calendars, aligning their worlds with the rhythms of the cosmos. How did they achieve such accuracy without telescopes or computers? And why do their systems still echo in our clocks and planners? These questions pull us into a story far grander than dates and numbers. It's a tale of human curiosity, of civilizations striving to conquer chaos by measuring the infinite. Imagine standing beneath the starry sky of ancient Mesopotamia, where priests etched celestial patterns into clay tablets, or walking the sun-baked streets of Tenochtitlan, where the Aztecs celebrated a calendar so precise it could predict eclipses centuries in advance. These weren't just tools for tracking time, they were bridges between earth and heaven, woven into festivals, harvests, and even the rise and fall of empires. The deeper we dig, the clearer it becomes. Our modern calendars are living artifacts carrying whispers of long-lost worlds into the present. So join me on a journey across millennia where we'll unravel the secrets of time itself. We'll explore how the Egyptians used the Nile's floods to craft a solar calendar, how the Chinese harmonized their years with lunar cycles, and how the Maya calculated dates so accurately they'd put modern software to shame. Along the way, you'll discover how these ancient systems shaped everything from your daily schedule to the very way humanity perceives progress. This isn't just history, it's the hidden architecture of your life waiting to be uncovered. Ready to decode the mysteries of time? Let's begin. Long before clocks ticked or smartphones buzzed with reminders, our ancestors looked to the heavens for answers. The very first timekeepers weren't gadgets or gears, they were the moon's glowing face, the sun's steady arc, and the stars' silent dance across the night sky. In the dim glow of prehistoric campfires, early humans noticed something extraordinary. The moon's shape changed in a predictable rhythm, cycling from slender crescent to full circle and back again every 29.5 days. This simple observation became humanity's first calendar, etched not on paper but in memory and myth. Imagine a hunter-gatherer in what's now France, 30,000 years ago, carving notches into a wolf bone to tally the moon's phases. That's exactly what archaeologists believe they've found with the Ishango bone, a tool discovered in the Congo, its markings arranged in patterns that mirror lunar cycles. Could this humble artifact be one of the world's oldest calendars? It's a tantalizing clue to how deeply timekeeping was woven into survival itself. But the real game changer came when humans traded their nomadic ways for settled farming. Suddenly, knowing when to plant seeds or harvest crops meant the difference between feast and famine. In the fertile crescent of Mesopotamia, where wheat and barley first flourished, farmers watched not just the moon but the sun's shifting path. They noticed that certain star clusters appeared just before the annual floods of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, a celestial alarm clock signaling it was time to prepare the fields. That's when sundials emerged, their shadows tracing hours across stone surfaces in Babylon and Egypt. Picture a priest in Ur, around 4,000 years ago, adjusting a vertical gnomon to mark midday when the shadow grew shortest. These weren't just tools, they were sacred instruments, linking human routines to the god's celestial order. What's astonishing is how these early systems born from dirt and starlight contained the seeds of our modern timekeeping. The Babylonians divided the day into 24 hours, a system we still use today, while Egyptian astronomers aligned their pyramids with the stars to track the year's progression. Every harvest festival, every solstice ceremony was a step toward the precise clocks and digital calendars we rely on now. So the next time you glance at your watch, remember, you're not just checking the time. You're reading the latest chapter in an epic story that began when the first human looked up at the night sky and dared to measure eternity. While the Babylonians charted time by the moon's glow, the ancient Egyptians turned their gaze to a fiercer celestial ruler, the sun. Their innovation, a groundbreaking 365-day calendar, so precise it became the blueprint for timekeeping across civilizations. At the heart of this system lay the Nile, Egypt's lifeblood, whose annual floods painted the desert green with fertile silt. But predicting these floods wasn't just about agriculture, it was a matter of survival. Enter Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, known to the Egyptians as Sopdet. Every year, just before the Nile's waters surged, Sirius would reappear at dawn after vanishing for 70 days, a celestial herald screaming, "The flood is coming." Picture an Egyptian priest on a rooftop in Thebes, scanning the horizon in the pre-dawn darkness. The moment that first glint of Sirius pierced the sky, the countdown began. Within weeks, the Nile would overflow its banks, and the entire kingdom would mobilize. This cosmic event was so reliable that the Egyptians built their calendar around it, dividing the year into 3 seasons: Akhit, the inundation; Peret, the growing period; and Shemu, the harvest. Each season spanned 4 months of 30 days, with 5 extra days tacked on to honor the gods, a tidy 365-day package. What made this solar calendar revolutionary was its divorce from the messy, inconsistent lunar cycles that had dominated earlier timekeeping. While lunar calendars required constant tweaking to stay aligned with the seasons, adding months here and there, the Egyptian system marched in lockstep with the sun. No more guessing when to plant or harvest. Nature's rhythms were finally tamed into a predictable grid. But here's the twist: the Egyptians knew their calendar wasn't perfect. A true solar year is roughly 6 hours longer than 365 days, meaning their system crept out of sync over time. Yet this wandering year didn't bother them. For over 1,000 years, they let the calendar drift, knowing Sirius would always reset the clock with its annual appearance. Centuries later, Julius Caesar would encounter this Egyptian wisdom during his affair with Cleopatra. Struck by its simplicity, he enlisted the astronomer Sosigenes to adapt it for Rome, birthing the Julian calendar, the direct ancestor of our modern Gregorian system. So when you jot down a date in your planner, you're not just writing numbers, you're inscribing the legacy of Nile floods, star priests, and an empire that dared to chain the sun to human time. While the Egyptians mastered the sun's rhythm, the Babylonians were weaving time from silver moonlight. Their lunar calendar, born in the fertile plains between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, didn't just track days, it sculpted them into a 12-month tapestry so elegant its echoes still shape our clocks. Picture a Babylonian astronomer perched atop the ziggurat of Ur, his clay tablet glinting under the night sky as he records the moon's phases with meticulous precision. Each new crescent marked the start of a month, with 12 cycles making up a year. But here's where their genius shone brightest. They noticed these lunar years fell short of the solar cycle by about 11 days, throwing seasons into chaos over time. Their solution, intercalation, the art of slipping an extra month into the calendar when needed, like a celestial reset button. Imagine the royal decree issued across Babylon announcing the addition of a 13th month, ensuring that festivals stayed tied to harvests and solstices. This wasn't guesswork, it was mathematics refined over centuries. The Babylonians, after all, were the architects of the base 60 system, a numerical language that let them divide the heavens with breathtaking accuracy. Why 60? It's divisible by so many numbers 12, 30, 20, making it perfect for slicing time into neat portions. That's why, even today, your clock ticks with 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour, a direct inheritance from these ancient sky watchers. But their influence didn't stop at clocks. Those 12 months, they became the backbone of the zodiac, with each lunar cycle assigned a constellation along the sun's path. Babylonian priests mapped these starry patterns, believing they held divine messages, a tradition that evolved into modern astrology. Next time you read a horoscope, you're tapping into a 3,000-year-old practice born from Babylon's stargazing temples. What's truly remarkable is how these innovations transcended time. Greek astronomers built on Babylonian math, medieval scholars pored over their star catalogues, and even NASA engineers rely on their base 60 system for orbital calculations. The Babylonians didn't just count days, they gave humanity a framework to measure eternity, one moonbeam at a time. Far from the deserts of Egypt and the rivers of Babylon, in the dense jungles of Mesoamerica, the Maya crafted a timekeeping system so intricate it still baffles modern scholars. While other cultures tracked years, the Maya calculated epochs, their long count calendar stretching across thousands of years with pinpoint accuracy. At its heart lay a vigesimal system counting by 20s instead of 10s, a mathematical approach that mirrored their cosmology. Picture a Mayan scribe in Capon, etching glyphs into limestone, recording not just days but entire cycles of creation and destruction. Their calendar wasn't merely a tool, it was a living prophecy woven from the movements of planets and the whispers of gods. Take the Tzolk'in, their sacred almanac of 260 days, a fusion of 13 numbers and 20-day names that repeated like celestial gears. This wasn't arbitrary, it mirrored the human gestation period and the growth cycle of corn, their sacred crop. Farmers planted by its rhythms, priests divined futures with its patterns, and kings timed wars to its auspicious days. But the Maya didn't stop there. They layered it with the Hob, a 365-day solar calendar, creating a grand cycle that only aligned every 52 years, an event so momentous it sparked rituals of renewal where extinguished fires symbolized the world's rebirth. Their mastery of astronomy was unparalleled. Without telescopes, they tracked Venus's 584-day orbit with an error margin of just 2 hours, carving its path into temple walls at Chichén Itzá. When Venus rose as the morning star, it signaled time for sacred battles, a celestial drumbeat guiding their wars. And then there's the long count, the calendar that sparked global frenzy over its end date in December 2012. Contrary to Hollywood doomsday tales, this wasn't a prediction of apocalypse but the completion of a 13-Bacton cycle, roughly 5,125 years. To the Maya, it was a cosmic reset, akin to the turning of an hourglass, a reminder that time was cyclical, not linear like our Western march from past to future. This cyclical vision permeated everything. While modern schedules push us toward deadlines and progress, the Maya saw time as a spiral where events repeated in grand patterns. Their calendars weren't measuring minutes, they were mapping the breadth of the universe itself. Today, as we rush through digital appointments, there's something haunting about their perspective. That time isn't a line to be conquered, but a dance to be joined. While the Maya and Babylonians crafted intricate celestial clocks, early Rome's calendar was a political free-for-all. a messy 10-month scramble that left farmers guessing when to plant and citizens unsure when to pay debts. Picture this: by the time winter arrived, the Roman year had already ended, leaving a 60-day gap of unrecorded time where nothing officially existed. No months, no dates, just cold chaos. This bizarre system, supposedly created by Romulus himself, began in March and ended in December, with months like quintiles and sextiles, later renamed July and August, reflecting their numerical order. But without January or February, winter became a bureaucratic ghost town, forcing priests to occasionally slap extra months onto the year like makeshift patches. Enter the pontifices, Rome's powerful priesthood who held the calendar's reins. These weren't just holy men, they were timekeeping warlords, need to extend a political ally's term in office. They'd tack on days, want to rush an enemy out of power, they'd chop time from the year. One notorious example, in 153 BCE, magistrates took office in January instead of March because the pontifices had fiddled with the calendar so much that seasons no longer matched their months. Farmers showed up to harvest festivals in the dead of winter, and tax collectors arrived early, sparking riots. The system was so unreliable that wealthy Romans hired private astronomers to whisper secret celestial updates, like gamblers with inside tips. Julius Caesar finally slammed the brakes on this madness after his Egyptian campaign, where he witnessed the precision of the Nile solar calendar. Backed by the astronomer Sosigenes, he bulldozed Rome's lunar chaos with a radical fix: a 365-day solar year, plus a leap day every 4 years to catch up with the sun's lag. But even Caesar's iron will couldn't prevent one last hiccup. The very year of reform, 46 BCE, ballooned to 445 days just to reset the clock, earning it the nickname, the Year of Confusion. Romans joked they'd aged a decade in one calendar, but the payoff was worth it. For the first time, Rome's dates marched in lockstep with the seasons. What's astonishing is how much petty politics shaped time itself. Those pontifices didn't just tweak dates, they warped reality, proving that calendars aren't just about stars and math, they're mirrors of power. Caesar's reforms didn't just fix the calendar, they ripped control from priests and handed it to science, setting the stage for a revolution in how humanity would measure its days. Julius Caesar didn't just conquer Gaul, he conquered time itself, fresh from his Egyptian campaign, where he'd marveled at the precision of the Nile solar calendar. Rome's dictator faced a timekeeping disaster at home. The Republic's calendar was a tangled mess of lunar guesswork and political meddling, with years veering wildly out of sync with the seasons. Enter Sosigenes, an Alexandrian astronomer whose brilliance would reshape history. Together, they crafted a bold solution: a 365-day year with an extra day tucked in every 4 years to account for the sun's lingering quarter-day lag. This wasn't just math, it was a power move. By standardizing time across the sprawling Roman Empire, Caesar didn't just synchronize harvests, he tightened his grip on an unruly realm. Imagine the chaos before reform. Tax collectors showed up months early, farmers missed planting seasons, and festivals meant to honor spring gods shivered in winter frost. The old calendar had become a weapon, with Rome's pontifices' high priests adding or subtracting days to extend allies' terms or sabotage rivals. Caesar's fix stripped them of that power, anchoring time to the impartial rhythm of the cosmos. And in a stroke of political theater, he immortalized himself in the very fabric of the year, renaming quintiles, the month of his birth, as July. It was a masterclass in legacy building, one his heir Augustus would later mimic by branding sextiles as August. But even genius has flaws. That extra quarter day added by leap years was ever so slightly too generous, 11 minutes too long, to be exact. Over centuries, those minutes snowballed. By the 1500s, the Julian calendar had drifted a full 10 days out of sync with the solar year, throwing Easter's date into chaos and leaving farmers scratching their heads. The fix would come, but not for another 1600 years, when Pope Gregory Roman XIII trimmed the overcorrection with his Gregorian reforms. Yet Caesar's vision endured, its bones still visible in the calendars hanging on our walls today. His greatest victory wasn't on any battlefield, it was in the quiet, relentless ticking of a clock he helped design. By the late 16th century, the Julian calendar's tiny miscalculation had snowballed into a 10-day nightmare. Spring equinoxes were arriving in March's second week, Easter's date kept drifting further from its biblical alignment, and farmers across Europe were sowing seeds under skies that no longer matched their ancestral almanacs. Enter Pope Gregory XIII, a reformer with a mathematician's precision and a diplomat's cunning. His solution was as bold as it was controversial. In October 1582, Catholic countries simply erased 10 days from existence. One night, people went to bed on October 4th and woke up on October 15th. The science behind this fix was impeccable. Gregory's astronomers, led by the brilliant Christopher Clavius, had pinpointed the flaw. The Julian calendar's leap year system overcompensated for the solar year's length by about 11 minutes annually. Those minutes added up to a full week's drift every 1,000 years. To prevent future chaos, they introduced a new rule. Century years divisible by 400 would be leap years, but others wouldn't. So the year 2000 got an extra day, but 1700, 1800, and 1900 didn't. This tweak brought the calendar within seconds of the sun's actual rhythm, a masterpiece of celestial engineering. But not everyone embraced this papal decree. Protestant nations, wary of anything smelling of Rome's influence, dug in their heels. England held out until 1752, by which time their calendar had drifted a staggering 11 days. When Parliament finally adopted the Gregorian system, riots erupted. Crowds screamed, "Give us back our 11 days," convinced landlords were cheating them out of rent or life itself. Even famed essayist William Addison mocked the change, claiming his birthday now felt stolen by papal arithmetic. The reform's ripple effects were astonishing. Tax deadlines shifted, contracts needed rewording, and astronomers had to recalculate celestial events retroactively. Some Orthodox Christian churches still cling to the Julian calendar for religious dates, which is why Christmas falls on January 7th in places like Russia and Serbia. Yet despite the chaos, Gregory's system triumphed not by force but by sheer practicality. Today, it's the global standard, synchronizing everything from stock markets to school years. Every time you scribble a date, you're participating in a 400-year-old compromise between faith, science, and the stubborn human need to pin down eternity. What's poetic is how this story mirrors time itself, messy, contested, but ultimately bending toward order. The Gregorian calendar didn't just correct a math error. It proved that even something as universal as time is shaped by politics, culture, and the occasional mob demanding their missing days back. While Europe debated leap years and Rome reset its clocks, Chinese astronomers were perfecting a masterpiece of celestial harmony, the lunisolar calendar. Unlike rigid solar systems or purely lunar counts, this ingenious framework danced between two rhythms, marrying the moon's phases with the sun's journey through the sky. Picture a scholar in ancient Chang'an, charting not just full moons but 24 solar terms, exact moments when the sun reached 15-degree increments in its annual path. These weren't abstract markers, they were lifelines. The term "awakening of insects" signaled when farmers should expect the first thunderstorm, while grain rain warned of impending downpours that could ruin harvests. Every festival, from the lantern-lit mid-autumn celebration to the dragon-boated Duanwu, pulsed to this dual celestial heartbeat. At the calendar's core lay a 12-year cycle, each year branded with an animal spirit, rat, ox, tiger, woven into legend by the Jade Emperor's mythical race. But this zodiac was more than folklore. It shaped marriages, business ventures, even imperial decrees. A child born in the year of the dragon might be celebrated for their destined boldness, while a couple pairing tiger and rabbit signs could face skeptical elders. The system's flexibility stunned outsiders. While Gregorian New Year's Day stays fixed, Chinese New Year floats between late January and mid-February, determined by the second new moon after the winter solstice. This elasticity kept festivals tethered to seasons, ensuring Lunar New Year feasts always welcomed spring's first buds. What set China's system apart was its refusal to force nature into a numerical straitjacket. When lunar and solar cycles drifted too far apart, emperors inserted entire leap months, a practice called zhongqi, reshuffling the year like a cosmic jigsaw puzzle. Farmers didn't just count days, they listened to the land, using terms like great heat to time rice planting or frost descent to store grains. Contrast this with Europe's solar calendars, where fixed dates often divorced rituals from their ecological roots. The Qingming festival always arrives when willow trees bud, while Easter's wandering date can leave Christians hunting eggs in snowdrifts. Today, even as digital clocks dominate, China's dual calendar tradition endures. Rural almanacs still list auspicious days for weddings or house building, and the spring migration, humanity's largest annual movement, revolves around that fluid New Year's date. It's a testament to a system that didn't just measure time, but harmonized it with Earth's whispers and heaven's grandeur. While China balanced sun and moon, India's ancient scholars wove an even richer tapestry, the Panchanga, a calendar so precise it tracked 5 celestial dances at once. Imagine a temple astronomer in Varanasi, his ink-stained fingers flipping palm leaf manuscripts as he calculates not just moon phases, but the exact moment the sun enters a new zodiac constellation, or when specific star clusters align with the lunar path. This wasn't just timekeeping, it was cosmic choreography. The Panchanga's name reveals its genius, Pancha meaning 5, Anga meaning limbs, a living organism of time with each component vital. First Tai, the lunar day, marking the moon's 12-degree separation from the sun. Unlike rigid 24-hour days, Tai, thy durations vary between 19 and 26 hours based on orbital speed. Then came Nakshatra, the moon's nightly rest stops among 27 star clusters, each with unique mythic significance. A child born under Ashwini Nakshatra was said to inherit the speed of divine horsemen, while those under Rohini were blessed with creativity like the red glow of Aldebaran. Yoga measured the sun and moon's combined longitudinal angle with names like Siddha, success, or Vyatapata, calamity, guiding everything from wedding dates to business launches. Corona half-tai, thy segments, dictated auspicious moments for mundane tasks, even the ideal time to cut hair or travel. And Vara, our familiar 7-day week, but each day pulsed with planetary energy, from sun-ruled Sundays to Saturn-Soma Saturdays. This system made festivals fluid poetry. Diwali, the Festival of Lights, doesn't land on a fixed Gregorian date. It arrives on the new moon of Kartik month when Lakshmi, goddess of prosperity, is believed to walk the earth. Similarly, the monsoon-soaked celebration of Raksha Bandhan sways with the full moon of Shravana month. Modern astronomers have found startling accuracy in these calculations. The Panchanga predicted solar eclipses centuries in advance by tracking the moon's shadow nodes with eerie precision. Yet what's truly remarkable is how this ancient system thrives alongside digital clocks. Open any Hindu household's kitchen today, and you'll likely spot a panchanga hanging beside a Gregorian wall calendar. Weddings still wait for muhurta, auspicious windows calculated by priests using millennia-old formulas. Farmers from Punjab to Tamil Nadu consult solar terms like Makara Sankranti to plant crops, even as smartphones buzz with weather apps. It's a dance of traditions where rocket launches share headlines with astrological almanacs, proving that time in India isn't a single thread but a glittering sari woven from countless stars. This coexistence reveals a universal truth: calendars aren't just tools, they're cultural fingerprints preserving how civilizations once and still touch the infinite. Whether it's a Wall Street trader checking Diwali dates or a grandmother fasting on Ekadashi, these systems remind us that time is more than numbers. It's memory, ritual, and the quiet assurance that some rhythms transcend clocks. While solar and lunisolar calendars tied time to seasons, the Islamic Hidry calendar took a radically different path, one guided entirely by the moon's silver arc across the night sky. Born in 7th century Arabia, this system wasn't just a way to track days. It was a divine ordinance, its rhythms etched into the Quran itself. Picture the desert night when Prophet Muhammad and his followers made their historic migration, the Hijra from Mecca to Medina. That journey in 622 CE became the anchor point of this new calendar, marking year one in a timeline that would unite Muslim empires from Cordoba to Delhi. Unlike the Gregorian or Chinese systems, the Hidry calendar ignores the sun completely. Its 12 months from Muharram to Dhu al-Hijjah are strictly lunar, each beginning only when the crescent moon is sighted by naked eye. This purity creates a year of about 354 days, 11 days shorter than a solar year. The result: Islamic holidays don't just drift slightly like Easter, they migrate dramatically through the seasons. Ramadan, the month of dawn to dusk fasting, might fall in winter's short days one decade and summer's scorching heat the next. The Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca could land in autumn rains or the blistering sands of August. This lunar devotion carries profound spiritual meaning. The Quran explicitly ties sacred months to moon phases, urging believers to ask about the new crescent to mark time. For centuries, moon sighting became a communal ritual, with scholars scanning twilight skies from minarets. Even today, countries like Saudi Arabia and Pakistan dispatch moon sighting committees to remote hills, debating whether a faint sliver truly signals the start of Shawwal and Eid festivities. Yet this celestial fidelity comes with earthly challenges. Farmers in Muslim-majority regions have long juggled two calendars, the Hidri for prayers and the solar year for planting. Ancient Persian scholars devised the solar Hidri calendar to bridge this gap, but religious events stayed moored to the lunar cycle. Modern debates simmer. Should Muslim nations adopt astronomical calculations to predict moon phases, ending contentious sighting disputes? Some argue this betrays tradition. Others see it as embracing science, much like medieval astronomers who refined prayer time calculations with astrolabes. What's striking is how this lunar system resists globalization's push for uniformity. While the world syncs meetings via Gregorian dates, the Hidri calendar preserves a rhythm that feels almost rebellious, a reminder that time, for billions, isn't just ticks on a clock but a sacred dance with the cosmos. As technology lets us track microseconds, there's something stirring about a calendar that still waits for human eyes to catch moonlight on the horizon. In the echoing stone corridors of medieval monasteries, time didn't tick, it chanted. Long before factories demanded punch clocks or smartphones chimed reminders, Benedictine monks perfected a system that would quietly revolutionize how humanity structures its days, the canonical hours. Picture a frost-dusted chapel in 6th century Monte Cassino, where robed figures gathered by candlelight for matins, the night office. Their day unfolded in 8 sacred intervals: lauds at dawn, prime at sunrise, terce mid-morning, each marked not by mechanical hands but by the psalm's cadence. This rhythmic division of day and night into prayer segments did more than shape spiritual life. It planted the seeds of our modern 24-hour clock. The monks' tools were ingenious in their simplicity. Water clocks, known as clepsydry, measured intervals between services with liquid dripping steadily from brass bowls. In colder climes, candle clocks burned precise notches marked along wax columns, each hour literally melting away. Some abbeys even positioned sundials on cloister walls, their shadows creeping past carved lines that signaled when to sing the next office. These weren't just timers, they were sacred technologies, synchronizing human activity with celestial patterns centuries before Greenwich Mean Time. What's startling is how their regimented schedule mirrors today's productivity hacks. The rule of Saint Benedict, the monastic playbook, prescribed exact periods for work, study, and rest, with flexibility built in for seasonal light changes. Summer's long days meant earlier vigils, winter's darkness delayed prayers. Modern time management gurus would nod in recognition at this balance of structure and adaptation. The monks even had their version of deep work sessions, scriptorium hours when scribes copied manuscripts in undisturbed silence, producing treasures like the Book of Kells between the ringing of bells. Their legacy lingers in subtle ways. Ever wonder why we say a clock? It's a contraction of the clock, harking back to when churches first installed mechanical clocks to strike the canonical hours for townsfolk. Those medieval towers didn't just tell time, they broadcast the monastery's disciplined rhythm to the secular world. Today, as we slice our days into calendar blocks and Pomodoro timers, we're unwitting heirs to those robed timekeepers who first proved that dividing time could conquer chaos. The next time your smartwatch buzzes for a stand-up meeting, remember, you're following in the footsteps of monks who turned celestial patterns into the architecture of daily life. The rhythmic clang of iron gears shattered medieval Europe's reliance on celestial timekeepers, first in monasteries, then across bustling town squares. Around the 14th century, an engineering marvel began ascending cathedral towers: the mechanical clock, its heartbeat regulated by an ingenious device called the escapement. Picture a blacksmith in Milan or Strasbourg, painstakingly assembling a labyrinth of weights, gears, and foliate balances, a contraption that could divide time into equal, measurable chunks regardless of clouds or nightfall. This wasn't just progress, it was a rebellion against nature's whims. Earlier water clocks had frozen in winter, candle clocks blew out in drafts, but these iron beasts ticked on, their foliate arms oscillating like metronomes, releasing the gear train one tooth at a time. The escapement's genius lay in its simplicity. It transformed continuous motion into regulated intervals, achieving accuracy unheard of in sundials or hourglasses. As these tower clocks spread, from Prague's astronomical wonder to Wells Cathedral's faceless dial, they didn't just tell time, they rewrote urban life. For the first time, laborers' shifts ended not when the light faded, but when the bell struck 7. Markets opened at precise hours and curfews became enforceable. The clock tower became the town's heartbeat, its chimes audible for miles, synchronizing everyone from bakers to magistrates. In 1370, King Charles V of France decreed all Parisian clocks must align with the royal palace's mechanism, an early attempt at standardized time that foreshadowed today's atomic regulated networks. Yet the real revolution came when clocks shrank. By the 1500s, coiled springs replaced hanging weights, allowing timepieces to sit on tables or even slip into pockets. Nuremberg craftsmen began producing eggs, ornate, drum-shaped watches worn as pendants by the wealthy. Suddenly, time wasn't anchored to public squares, it became a personal companion. This portability changed everything. Sailors could now calculate longitude at sea with marine chronometers, merchants timed shipments to the minute, and the modern workday's tyranny of the clock face took hold. What's often overlooked is how these inventions set the stage for global time zones. When railway networks exploded in the 19th century, the chaos of each town keeping its own local time became untenable. Trains needed synchronized schedules, so the world adopted a grid of 24 time zones, a direct descendant of those medieval gears that first made minutes matter. Every time you check your smartphone's clock, you're touching the legacy of an unassuming escapement that taught humanity to march in mechanical unison. By the mid-19th century, the world was hurtling into chaos not from war or plague, but from the simple act of telling time. As steam engines crisscrossed continents and telegraph cables stitched together empires, every town stubbornly clung to its own version of noon, determined by when the sun hung directly overhead. The result, a traveler stepping off a train in Pennsylvania might find clocks showing 3 different times within the same station. Ship captains comparing longitude calculations with port officials faced maddening discrepancies. Even the new transcontinental railways, those iron threads of progress, nearly unraveled under the strain of scheduling trains across towns with dozens of conflicting local times. Something had to give. Enter Greenwich Mean Time, the quiet hero of this temporal revolution. The groundwork was laid in 1884, when diplomats and scientists from 25 nations gathered in Washington, D.C. for the International Meridian Conference. After weeks of debate and no small amount of national pride, they voted to crown the meridian passing through Britain's Royal Observatory in Greenwich as Earth's 0-degree longitude line. Why Greenwich? Practicality trumped politics. By then, over 2/3 of the world's shipping already used its nautical charts for navigation. GMT became the global heartbeat, slicing the planet into 24 time zones like segments of an orange, each 15 degrees apart. But convincing the world to sync its clocks wasn't easy. Traditionalists howled at the arrogance of railway time, dismissing it as a corporate plot to erase local identity. In Oxford, furious professors refused to adjust their pocket watches, forcing students to attend lectures by both university time and the new railroad schedule. French newspapers mocked London's tyranny, while American farmers protested that crops didn't grow by some bureaucrat's clock. The most dramatic resistance came in Italy, where the cathedral in Milan kept its own solar time for decades, its towering clock face defiantly out of step with the trains roaring into the station below. What these holdouts missed was how this standardization birthed the modern world. GMT didn't just synchronize trains, it enabled stock markets to coordinate across continents, weather forecasts to track storms accurately, and eventually radio broadcasts to unite nations with shared programming. Today's Coordinated Universal Time, UTC for short, is GMT's even more precise descendant, its atomic clock precision governing everything from GPS satellites to your smartphone's automatic updates. That tiny time display in your taskbar, it's the legacy of a Victorian-era compromise that tamed time's chaos, proving humanity's greatest inventions aren't always gadgets. Sometimes they're simply agreements. Even in our age of atomic precision, time refuses to be tamed completely. Beneath the hyper-accurate ticking of cesium clocks, the kind that measure time by counting vibrations of atoms, lies an inconvenient truth: Earth itself is an unreliable timekeeper. Our planet's rotation is gradually slowing, dragged down by tidal friction from the Moon's gravitational pull. Over centuries, this deceleration adds up, throwing atomic time out of sync with solar time by milliseconds each year. To bridge this gap, scientists since 1972 have occasionally inserted a leap second into coordinated universal time. Picture a New Year's Eve countdown where, instead of jumping from 11:59:59 to midnight, the clock hesitates for an extra second, 11:59:60. It's a tiny hiccup, but without it, our ultra-precise atomic clocks would eventually leave the sun behind, with noon drifting into night over millennia. This modern solution eerily mirrors ancient calendar fixes. Just as Babylonian priests slipped in extra months to realign lunar years with seasons, or Mayan astronomers adjusted their long count to cosmic cycles, today's timekeepers perform delicate surgery on the clock. The difference, instead of watching moon phases, we now track Earth's wobble with laser beams shot at mirrors left on the moon by Apollo astronauts. Yet the goal remains unchanged, harmonizing human systems with nature's imperfections. Not everyone agrees on the fix. Tech giants like Google and Meta have lobbied to abolish leap seconds, arguing these forced pauses wreak havoc on digital infrastructure. In 2012, a leap-second crash landed servers running Reddit, LinkedIn, and Qantas's booking systems. The International Telecommunication Union remains split, with some nations proposing we let the discrepancy grow until a leap hour is needed, a solution that would take centuries to implement but spare computers from annual glitches. What's fascinating is how this debate echoes ancient tensions between celestial purity and practical convenience. The Gregorian calendar's 10-day correction faced riots. Will our descendants protest when their smart devices finally skip a second? As we hurtle toward an era of quantum clocks accurate to within 1 second over the age of the universe, we're still grappling with the same challenge that haunted Babylonian astrologers and medieval monks: how to pin down something as fluid as time itself. The answer, it seems, is always provisional, a reminder that even in our digital age, the cosmos still sets the tempo. Beneath the polished floors of laboratories in Paris, Boulder, and Tokyo, machines whisper the time with precision that would make ancient astronomers weep. These are cesium atomic clocks, the silent guardians of modern timekeeping, so accurate they'd lose just 1 second over the entire span of human civilization. At their heart lies a feat of quantum wizardry. Atoms of cesium-133, chilled to near absolute zero, then tossed into a microwave cavity like microscopic trapeze artists. Scientists measure how many times these atoms vibrate between energy states: 9,192,631,770 times per second, to be exact. That number, locked in by the laws of physics, became the official definition of a second in 1967, divorcing time from the unreliable spin of Earth and tying it instead to the unshakable rhythm of the atom. This isn't just laboratory bragging rights. The ripple effects touch everything from your morning commute to interplanetary missions. Take GPS satellites, those orbital sentinels guiding your pizza delivery or cross-country road trip. Each one carries an atomic clock because navigation boils down to an ultra-precise timekeeping duel. Here's why: when your phone pings a satellite, it calculates distance by how long the signal takes to travel. But light moves fast, about 1 foot per nanosecond. A clock error of just 1,000th of a second would throw your position off by 200 miles. Without cesium clocks correcting for Einstein's relativity, yes, time ticks slower in orbit than on Earth. Your ride-share app would send you into a lake instead of the drive-through. What's poetic is how this hyper-modern tech echoes ancient stargazers. Just as Mayan priests tracked Venus to predict wars, or Babylonian astronomers used lunar cycles to schedule harvests, today's scientists still harmonize human activity with cosmic patterns only now, The stars are man-made satellites, and the temples are vacuum-sealed chambers where atoms dance. Even the leap-second debate mirrors old calendar disputes. Do we force nature into our precise atomic boxes, or let Earth's sluggish spin have its say? The next generation of clock strontium lattice and ytterbium models pushes accuracy into almost surreal territory. These devices could go billions of years without a misstep, potentially detecting gravitational waves by how they warp time itself. It's a reminder that our quest to measure time, from sundials to atomic fountains, has always been about more than minutes and hours. It's about touching something eternal, whether through stone circles or superconducting circuits. So when you check the time on your phone tonight, take a second, a cesium-defined second, to marvel at how far we've come since counting moon phases on wolf bones. The digital age didn't just change how we see time, it reinvented how time connects us. Hidden beneath every email sent, stock trade executed, or video call bridged across continents is an invisible web of synchronization, powered by something called Network Time Protocol, or NTP. Picture this: every millisecond, thousands of servers worldwide whisper to each other, adjusting their clocks in a ballet of precision that would make even the most meticulous Babylonian astronomer gasp. Unlike ancient sundials, which could vary by hours depending on latitude or cloud cover, NTP ensures a Tokyo banker's timestamp aligns perfectly with a Reykjavik date, a center's log down to the millisecond. How does this silent choreography work? At its core are atomic clocks, those hyper-accurate timekeepers we met earlier, but with a democratic twist. Your laptop or smartphone doesn't house a cesium fountain. Instead, it politely asks a hierarchy of servers called stratum servers, what time is it really? A stratum 1 server, directly linked to an atomic clock, might answer first, followed by stratum 2 servers, and so on, cascading until even the device in your palm knows the time within microseconds. This isn't just nerdy precision, it's the glue holding modern life together. Without NTP, online auctions would descend into chaos, encryption would crumble, and the entire internet's log files would look like a jumbled time travel paradox. The irony is delicious when you contrast this with humanity's earliest timekeepers. A sundial's shadow might stretch or shrink with the seasons, and even medieval mechanical clocks drifted by minutes daily. Now we've built a system where a single second's misalignment can crash stock markets or scramble satellite navigation. Yet for all its sophistication, NTP still grapples with a problem the Mayans and Egyptians would recognize: latency. Just as ancient messengers took time to relay celestial observations across empires, today's time signals battle speed of light delays as they bounce between servers. Engineers have devised fiendishly clever algorithms to compensate, but time, ever the trickster, remains just slightly out of reach, which raises a tantalizing question: what happens when artificial intelligence steps into this ancient dance? Already, AI optimizes NTP server networks, predicting traffic bottlenecks before they disrupt time signals. Some researchers suggest quantum algorithms could one day render NTP obsolete, enabling devices to infer global time without consulting servers at all, like an atomic clock intuition. Others warn of risks. If AI begins manipulating timestamps, could it rewrite digital reality? Imagine deep fakes not just altering faces, but fabricating timelines, making it impossible to distinguish when events truly occurred. Perhaps the future of timekeeping lies in a return to decentralization, not sundials in every backyard, but blockchain-like systems where devices vote on consensus time, resistant to manipulation. Or maybe we'll finally admit time was never meant to be tamed and embrace fluidity as the Maya did with their spiraling calendars. One thing's certain: as long as humans exist, will keep weaving new threads into time's eternal tapestry, stitching together atoms, algorithms, and the age-old longing to hold something infinite in our hands. In a world where digital clocks sync to atomic time and smartphones default to the Gregorian calendar, pockets of temporal resistance thrive, each keeping alive ancient rhythms that refuse to bow to globalization's ticking metronome. Take the Hebrew calendar, a lunisolar marvel that has guided Jewish life for millennia. While Wall Street trades by New York's business hours, families in Jerusalem or Brooklyn mark Rosh Hashanah by the ripening of late summer figs and the first sighting of the new moon. The calendar's intricate dance of leap months, adding an entire Adar Roman to 7 times every 19 years, ensures Passover always arrives with spring's lambing season, just as Exodus commands. Diaspora communities from Buenos Aires to Melbourne maintain this parallel temporal reality, their kitchens buzzing with preparations for Shabbat as Friday sunset fluctuates wildly by latitude, from the endless summer nights of Stockholm to the abrupt tropical twilights of Singapore. Equally resilient is the Persian solar Hidry calendar, its roots reaching back to Zoroastrian astronomers who aligned Nile as the new year with the vernal equinox. Today, as Tehran Stock Exchange shuts down for 13 days of Nowruz celebrations, Iranian expats in Los Angeles still set their Haft-Sin tables with sprouted wheat and garlic, their festivities timed to the second the sun crosses the celestial equator. This solar precision contrasts beautifully with Islam's lunar Hidry calendar, creating households where parents might celebrate a Gregorian birthday, a Persian Nowruz, and Islamic Eid all within months of each other, a temporal kaleidoscope reflecting layered identities. The survival of these systems isn't just nostalgia, it's a quiet rebellion against the tyranny of uniformity. In Ethiopia, where the Julian calendar still governs official time, New Year fireworks burst over Addis Ababa in September, 13 years behind the rest of the world by Gregorian reckoning. Meanwhile, Tamil families in Sri Lanka synchronize Pongal harvest festivals with the sun's entry into Capricorn, their pots of boiling milk timed to ancient sidereal calculations rather than arbitrary dates. Even China's digital juggernaut pauses every winter for Lunar New Year, when billions crisscross the globe following a moon phase schedule that sends factories scrambling to meet pre-holiday orders. What emerges is a breathtaking paradox. The more interconnected our world becomes, the more fiercely cultures cling to their unique ways of marking time. A Hasidic jeweler in Antwerp might track diamond shipments by Gregorian spreadsheets, but still lights Hanukkah candles by the Hebrew month of Kislev's 25th night. A Kurdish engineer in Berlin could code software in UTC while secretly counting down to Nowruz, the spring equinox festival banned for decades in her homeland. These parallel calendars aren't just relics, they're lifelines, preserving memory and meaning in a homogenized age. Perhaps the greatest testament to their power is how they've infiltrated the digital realm. Google Calendar offers Hebrew, Islamic, and Hindu lunar options alongside its default grid. Apps like Moon Phase notify users when to sight the Shawwal crescent for Eid, while Tibetan monks use 3D animations to teach younger generations their complex astrological math. In this dance of atoms and traditions, we're witnessing something extraordinary, not the extinction of ancient timekeeping, but its evolution. The same internet that spreads Greenwich Mean Time also carries videos of Balinese priests calculating auspicious days using Pawukan cycles, their 210-day calendar untouched by Rome or Mecca. So the next time someone complains about juggling multiple calendars, invites one for a Gregorian business meeting, another for Diwali sweets with grandma, remember, this isn't chaos. It's the sound of humanity refusing to let its oldest conversations with the cosmos be reduced to a single time zone. In these overlapping cycles of moons and markets, equinoxes and earnings reports, we find proof that even in a wired world, time remains deliciously, defiantly plural. Even as atomic clocks and digital calendars dominate our lives, a quiet revolution is brewing, one that seeks to iron out the wrinkles in our Gregorian system. Enter the Hank Henry Permanent Calendar, a bold proposal that tosses centuries of tradition out the window in favor of mathematical elegance. Picture this: 12 identical months, each spanning exactly 30 days, with quarters neatly divided into 2 months of 31 days and one of 30. The trick: a standalone leap week every 5 or 6 years, floating outside any month to keep the calendar aligned with Earth's orbit. No more scrambling to remember which months have 31 days. No more February lurking like a temporal speed bump at the start of the year. Birthdays would always land on the same weekday, and businesses could compare quarterly reports without calendar quirks skewing the numbers. But Hank Henry isn't the only contender. The world calendar, first proposed in the 1930s, takes a different approach: 4 identical quarters of 91 days each, with months of 31, 30, and 30 days. Like Hank Henry, it tucks extra days into a year-end, World's Day or two, in leap years that don't belong to any week. Advocates argue this system would simplify everything from payroll to school schedules, eliminating the Gregorian calendar's maddening inconsistencies. Imagine never needing to check if the 31st falls on a weekend before planning an event, or knowing that the first of every month is a Monday. The push for reform isn't just about convenience, it's a rebellion against historical baggage. The Gregorian calendar's quirks, from uneven month lengths to its awkward leap year rules, are relics of political tinkering and ancient astronomy. Julius Caesar's Julian calendar overcorrected with leap years, forcing Pope Gregory to trim 10 days in 1582. Even then, the fix wasn't perfect. Our current system still drifts by a day every 3,200 years. Modern proposals aim to sever timekeeping from these patchwork solutions, anchoring it instead to pure arithmetic. Yet tradition fights back. Religious groups balk at calendars that disrupt weekly cycles, fearing Sabbath days would float unpredictably. Farmers, tied to seasonal rhythms, question whether a fixed date system would truly align with planting and harvests. And then there's the sheer inertia of history. The Gregorian calendar is woven into laws, software, and global commerce. Switching would require rewriting everything from rent agreements to millennium-old liturgical calendars, a logistical nightmare akin to convincing the world to drive on the opposite side of the road overnight. The debate reveals a deeper tension. Is time a force to be standardized or a tapestry of cultural rhythms? For every executive craving spreadsheet-friendly months, there's a parent who cherishes the way Easter hops between March and April, or a chef who times recipes to the moon phases. Perhaps the answer lies not in choosing one system, but in embracing the messiness, a digital age where atomic precision coexists with lunar festivals, where your smartwatch counts nanoseconds while your grandmother consults an almanac for the best day to make pickles. After all, humanity's relationship with time has always been a negotiation between order and poetry, between the clock's tick and the cosmos' sigh. When humans finally plant their boots on Martian soil, they won't just face challenges of radiation and thin air, they'll grapple with a far subtler adversary, time itself. A day on Mars, called a sol, stretches 24 hours and 39 minutes, a rhythm that clashes with our Earth-bound biology and technology. Imagine waking up to a sunrise that arrives 40 minutes later each morning, your body's circadian rhythm slowly unraveling like a watch spring wound too tight. NASA rovers already operate on Martian time, with mission controllers famously living on Mars clocks during critical missions, their workdays sliding later each Earth day until they're syncing with colleagues over midnight coffee. Future colonists might adopt a split system, Martian sols for surface operations, synchronized Earth time for communication with home. Some proposals even suggest splitting the difference, creating a timekeeping hybrid where minutes stretch slightly longer to bridge the gap between worlds. This cosmic time warp echoes an ancient dilemma, sailors navigating by stars before the invention of accurate marine chronometers. Just as Polynesian voyagers read the heavens to cross uncharted oceans, Mars settlers will need to recalibrate their perception of time, using the planet's own rhythms as their guide. The Martian year lasts 687 Earth days, its seasons shaped by an elliptical orbit that creates wild temperature swings. Early colonists might mark time not by calendars but by dust storms, the planet's equivalent of monsoons, or the shifting position of its moons, Phobos and Deimos, streaking across the sky like erratic clock hands. Interstellar travel would shatter timekeeping entirely. A ship accelerating to near light speed would experience time dilation, a quirk of Einstein's relativity where clocks tick slower for travelers than for those left behind. A voyage to Proxima Centauri at 90% light speed might feel like 4 years to the crew, but Earth would have aged over 5.5 years in their absence. How would a generation ship bound for distant stars reconcile the creeping divergence between ship time and Earth time? One radical proposal suggests adopting proper time, a universal clock tied to the ship's velocity, while another leans into relativity, letting each star system keep its own local time, with algorithms translating birthdays and anniversaries across light years. The deeper we venture into the cosmos, the clearer it becomes. Timekeeping isn't just a tool, it's a language. Ancient Babylonians spoke it through lunar cycles, medieval monks through canonical hours, and soon, Martian farmers may whisper it through the lengthening shadows of Olympus Mons. Whether etched into clay tablets or encoded in quantum satellites, our measurement of time remains humanity's most persistent conversation with the universe. The way we experience time isn't just about clocks and calendars, it's woven into the fabric of our minds. Some cultures see time as a straight highway, racing from past to future, while others view it as a spinning wheel, where seasons and generations repeat in an endless loop. This split between linear and cyclical time shapes everything from how we work to how we grieve. In industrial societies, punctuality is king. Trains leave at 7:15, not when the rooster crows. Meetings start on the dot, and deadlines loom like thunderclouds. This rigid structure fuels efficiency, but also breeds stress, the constant tick-tock pressure that turns coffee breaks into guilty pleasures. Now picture an Indonesian rice farmer planting by the monsoon's return, or a Navajo elder weaving stories under stars that guided ancestors centuries ago. These traditions operate on event time, where activities flow like rivers, bending to natural rhythms rather than forcing nature into neat 30-minute slots. Anthropologists call this the polychronic approach, multitasking not as a productivity hack but as a way of being. A Balinese craftsman might pause mid-chisel to greet a neighbor, then resume hours later without missing a beat. In such cultures, watches are ornaments, not wardens. The tension between these worldviews spills into modern life. Ever felt your stomach knot when a meeting runs over, stealing minutes from your packed schedule? That's linear time clashing with your biology. Our bodies still dance to circadian rhythms older than Stonehenge. Hormones ebb and flow with daylight, yet we demand peak performance at all hours. The Industrial Revolution didn't just change how we work, it rewired how we feel time itself. turning it from a shared rhythm into a private adversary. Ancient calendars hint at alternatives. The Mayan long count saw time as spirals, where history's patterns recurred like overlapping waves. Chinese solar terms tied days to Earth's whispers, awakening of insects or grain in ear, reminding people that time wasn't just numbers but a dialogue with nature. Even the 7-day week, a Babylonian gift, carries this cyclical DNA. Unlike months hacked from lunar cycles or years bound to solstices, the week is purely human, a rhythm we imposed on chaos to create pockets of meaning, from Sabbath rest to Saturday markets. Perhaps the most striking evidence of time's psychological grip lies in language. English speakers imagine the future as ahead and the past behind, as if riding a train through time. But the Aymara people of the Andes flip this. Their word for future means behind because it's unseen while the past is in front, visible in memory. Meanwhile, Mandarin speakers describe time vertically. Last month is up, next month is down, a metaphor rooted in writing characters top to bottom. These aren't just quirks, they're windows into how deeply time shapes thought. Modern productivity gurus preach time management as salvation, yet the healthiest societies may be those that bend time instead of battling it. Spanish siestas acknowledge the brain's mid-afternoon slump. Dutch Nixon, the art of doing nothing, rejects guilt-free idleness. These aren't lazy habits, they're rebellions against the industrial stopwatch, reclaiming the right to move like tides rather than ticking bombs. The lesson from ancient calendars isn't just about astronomy, it's about harmony. A sundial shadow moves at nature's pace, not a spreadsheet's. Maybe the secret to easing our time anxiety lies in stealing back a little of that old wisdom, letting some hours stretch like honey, others crisp as autumn leaves, and remembering that clocks were made to serve humans, not the other way around. Long before telescopes pierced the sky or computers crunched orbital data, Babylonian astronomers crouched over clay tablets, tracing patterns that would unlock one of nature's most awe-inspiring spectacles, the eclipse. With nothing but patience and meticulous record-keeping, these ancient sky watchers discovered the Saros cycle, a rhythmic dance of sun, moon, and earth that repeats every 18 years, 11 days, and 8 hours. Picture a scribe in Nineveh around 700 BCE, etching symbols for darkness over the land beside precise dates, slowly detecting the pattern, similar eclipses recurring like clockwork across generations. Their genius lay in noticing that after this Saros interval, the celestial players returned to nearly the same positions, casting shadows in predictable ways. The Maya, half a world away, achieved even greater precision without the Babylonians' arithmetic. Their Dresden Codex, a bark paper book folded like an accordion, contains eclipse tables so accurate they could forecast lunar eclipses decades in advance. How? By tracking the moon's nodes, the invisible points where its path crosses the sun's, and calculating its wobbles with a Vigesimal base 20 system that put European astronomy to shame. At Chichen Itza, the serpentine shadows of El Castillo Pyramid may have served as a living eclipse calculator, its steps aligning with celestial events to mark auspicious or ominous dates. What's staggering is how modern astrophysics still leans on these ancient insights. NASA eclipse predictions, though powered by supercomputers, rely on the same Saros cycles Babylonian priests documented. The math has grown more sophisticated, accounting for Earth slowing rotation and lunar recession, but the core principle remains unchanged. Eclipses are cosmic echoes, their rhythms discernible to anyone who watches long enough. Yet there's a poignant contrast between then and now. Where ancient cultures saw eclipses as divine omens, Babylonian kings installed substitutes to absorb the god's wrath during these events. We view them through the lens of orbital mechanics. The Maya's Star War glyphs linking eclipses to battles have given way to eclipse-chasing tourists armed with solar filters. But in that shift, something profound was lost, the visceral awe that once tied humanity to the cosmos. Today's scientists may scoff at the idea of eclipses heralding doom, but they'd nod in respect at the observational prowess that turned celestial chaos into a predictable ballet. The next time you mark an eclipse on your calendar, remember, you're participating in a tradition that spans millennia, where the line between ancient astrology and modern astronomy blurs. Those clay tablets and bark books weren't just records, they were the first stepping stones in humanity's quest to decode the universe's heartbeat. Stonehenge stands silent on the Salisbury Plain, its massive stones waiting for a dawn that hasn't changed in 4,000 years. Every winter solstice, crowds gather in the pre-dawn darkness, breath visible in the cold air, as the rising sun aligns perfectly with the monument's central axis, a celestial handshake between human ingenuity and cosmic rhythm. This isn't just a tourist attraction. It's a living relic of how ancient cultures used festivals to pin time to the Earth's cycles. The stones themselves are a calendar in rock, their arrangement so precise that even today, we can mark the solstices by their shadows with uncanny accuracy. These solstice celebrations are more than just traditions, they're time capsules preserving humanity's earliest attempts to make sense of the heavens. Take Inti Raymi, the Incan festival of the sun, still celebrated in Peru every June with music and masked dancers. When the Spanish conquered the Andes, they tried to erase this pagan ritual, but the festival survived underground, resurfacing centuries later as a defiant link to ancestral wisdom. The Incas didn't just observe the winter solstice. They engineered entire cities like Machu Picchu as astronomical instruments, their temples and staircases catching the solstice sun like celestial spotlights. The power of these festivals lies in their duality. They're both scientific markers and emotional anchors. In Sweden, midsummer's flower-crowned maypoles and fermented herring honor a tradition so old its origins blur into myth. Yet the date remains tied to the actual solstice, a reminder of when Viking ships would set sail under endless daylight. Japan's Tsukumi moon viewing festivals, with their silver dumplings and poetry, echo Heian-era aristocrats who timed harvests by lunar phases. Even Christmas, ostensibly a Christian holiday, floats on older currents, its December date likely chosen to overlay Roman Saturnalia, a solstice celebration of light's return. What's fascinating is how these rituals adapt without losing their roots. Mexico's Dia de los Muertos, with its marigold altars and sugar skulls, blends Aztec traditions honoring Mictlantecuhtli, goddess of the underworld, with All Saints' Day. The festival still aligns with the maize harvest, just as it did when the Aztec calendar ruled Mesoamerica. Similarly, China's Mid-Autumn Festival, where families share mooncakes under the brightest full moon of the year, traces back to Tang Dynasty emperors offering lunar sacrifices, a practice itself borrowed from even older agricultural rites. The endurance of these festivals reveals a truth about timekeeping we often forget. Calendars aren't just tools for counting days. They're stories woven into the fabric of culture, passed down not through textbooks but through the smell of roasting chestnuts at a winter market or the sound of drums at a solstice bonfire. When Danish families light candles on St. Lucia's Day to cheer the sun back, or when Navajo chanters perform the 9-night Yebiche ceremony timed to the winter solstice, they're doing more than preserving tradition. They're keeping alive a conversation with the cosmos that began when the first human looked up at the sky and felt the irresistible urge to mark its patterns. Perhaps that's why, in our age of atomic clocks and digital reminders, these ancient festivals still resonate. There's something primal about gathering under the same stars as our ancestors, aligning our celebrations with the tilt of the planet itself. Whether it's the fiery wheels rolled down German hills at Easter or the lanterns floating on Thai rivers during Loy Krathong, these rituals remind us that time isn't just something we measure, it's something we feel in our bones, as inevitable as the seasons and as intimate as a shared meal under the solstice sun. Deep beneath the laboratories of Tokyo and Boulder, a new generation of timekeepers is emerging, machines so precise they could measure the age of the universe down to a single second. Optical lattice clocks, the cutting edge of chronometry, trap strontium atoms in laser grids so fine they're called light cages. These atoms vibrate at frequencies 100 times faster than cesium, offering accuracy so staggering that if one had started ticking at the Big Bang, it would be off by less than half a second today. But here's the twist: these clocks don't just count time, they expose its wrinkles. By detecting minuscule gravitational shifts when lifted just a few centimeters, they prove Einstein right yet again. Time flows slower closer to Earth's mass. Soon, networks of these clocks could map underground aquifers or predict volcanic eruptions by sensing how magma's weight bends space-time itself. Yet as these quantum marvels redefine precision, an existential question looms: should Earth's fickle rotation still anchor our time? For millennia, the planet's spin was the ultimate clock, but now we know it wobbles. Tidal friction from the moon, melting glaciers, even earthquakes can tweak the length of a day by milliseconds. Atomic time, unshaken by terrestrial tantrums, has already decoupled from solar time through leap seconds. Some scientists propose cutting the cord entirely, letting atomic clocks alone govern global timekeeping. Others argue Earth's rotation preserves a cosmic connection, a reminder that humans are creatures of daylight and tides, not just algorithms. Imagine a future where timekeeping splinters like languages. Mars colonists might adopt Sol time, their schedules synced to the rusty planet's rhythm. Lunar settlers could divide days into 30 lunations, each marking a sunrise over the Apollo landing sites. Back on Earth, virtual worlds may invent their own metrics, perhaps blockchain time stamped in immutable ledgers, or AI-generated cycles adapting to neural activity. Calendars could become dynamic, adjusting personal timelines based on biological age or cultural affinity. A biodiversity researcher might follow a phenological calendar tracking species migrations, while a gamer syncs to event time in metaverse seasons. The irony is poetic. As we chase ever more perfect time, we may circle back to the oldest truth: that time is and always has been a story we tell ourselves. The future won't just hold better clocks, it will force us to ask what we're measuring and why. Whether anchored to quasar pulses or quantum quivers, our next chapter in timekeeping won't just track moments, it will redefine what a moment means. One of the most persistent calendar myths is the idea that the Mayans predicted the world would end in 2012. Hollywood blockbusters and sensational headlines latched onto this misinterpretation, but the truth is far more fascinating. The Mayan long count calendar didn't forecast apocalypse, it simply completed a cycle, like an odometer rolling over. Imagine driving a car until the mileage resets to zero. The journey doesn't end, you just start a new count. The Mayans saw time as cyclical, not linear, with each era flowing into the next. Their inscriptions even reference future events beyond the so-called end date, proving they envisioned time stretching infinitely forward. Archaeologists have found tablets at sites like Tortuguero that describe ceremonies planned for centuries after 2012, shattering the doomsday myth. This wasn't a cosmic expiration notice, it was a celestial New Year's Eve. Another widespread misconception is that leap years happen like clockwork every 4 years. The real rule is more nuanced. A year is a leap year if it's divisible by 4. unless it's also divisible by 100, unless it's also divisible by 400. That's why the year 2000 was a leap year, but 1900 wasn't. This tweak, introduced by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582, corrected a tiny overcompensation in Julius Caesar's Julian calendar. Without this fix, our seasons would gradually slide out of alignment, turning August beach days into November frosts over centuries. The Gregorian adjustment is so precise that it'll take over 3,000 years before we're even one day off from the solar year. Then there's the belief that all ancient cultures used lunar calendars. While many did, others like the Egyptians and Maya blended lunar and solar cycles with astonishing sophistication. The Egyptian civil calendar, for example, ignored the moon entirely, relying on the sun and the Nile's floods. Meanwhile, the Chinese lunisolar calendar harmonized both systems, inserting extra months to keep lunar festivals aligned with solar seasons. These weren't primitive guesses, they were mathematical masterpieces. The Maya calculated Venus's orbit to within 2 hours over 500 years, and Babylonian astronomers predicted eclipses using the Saros cycle with accuracy that rivals modern software. Even the idea that calendar reform is a modern concept crumbles under scrutiny. The ancient Romans constantly tinkered with their calendar, adding and subtracting months for political gain until Julius Caesar finally imposed order. Centuries later, the French Revolution tried to decimalize time with 10-day weeks and 100-minute hours, a system so unpopular it lasted just 12 years. Timekeeping has always been a battleground of tradition, power, and precision. The next time you hear a catchy calendar myth, remember, behind every oversimplification lies a richer truth, one that reveals how brilliantly our ancestors wrestled with eternity. Their legacy isn't just in the dates we circle, it's in the enduring human quest to make sense of time itself. Want to experience timekeeping like an ancient astronomer? Grab a stick, find a sunny patch of ground, and prepare to turn your backyard into a sundial. This simple experiment reveals how our ancestors first divided days into measurable chunks. Plant the stick vertically, a gnomon as the Greeks called it, and mark where its shadow falls at each hour. By noon, when the shadow shrinks to its shortest length pointing due north, you'll understand why Egyptian priests used obelisks as giant timekeepers. For an extra challenge, try this for several weeks. You'll notice the shadow's path changes with the seasons, tracing wider arcs in summer and tighter ones in winter. This is precisely how Neolithic builders aligned Stonehenge and Newgrange to solstices, using nothing but shadows and patience. If you prefer night skies, start a moon journal. All you need is a notebook and a clear view of the lunar phases. Sketch the moon's shape each evening at the same time, noting how it waxes from a sliver to full and wanes back again over 29.5 days. Ancient Babylonians tracked these cycles on clay tablets, spotting patterns that let them predict eclipses. For a modern twist, use your phone to photograph the moon each night. You'll create a time-lapse revealing what Maya astronomers saw when they linked lunar cycles to agricultural rituals. Notice how the moon rises about 50 minutes later each day. That's why Islamic festivals like Eid shift annually across our Gregorian calendar. For a tactile project, craft a string and bead calendar inspired by Andean quippers. Assign colored beads to represent days, weeks, or moon phases, knotting them in sequences that track personal milestones alongside celestial events. The Inca used similar devices to coordinate empire-wide festivals without a written language. Or borrow from medieval monks by dividing your day into canonical hours, not for prayer, but as a productivity experiment. Set alarms for every 3 hours, pausing to reflect on how natural energy ebbs and flows compared to rigid 9 to 5 schedules. You might discover why Benedictine timekeeping boosted focus centuries before Pomodoro timers. These aren't just history lessons, they're windows into how differently cultures perceive time. When you journal by moonlight or chase shadows across grass, you're not just measuring minutes. You're walking in the footsteps of ancestors who turned the sky into humanity's first clock, proving that time isn't just something we watch tick away. It's a rhythm we can touch, track, and even reshape. From the shadow-chasing sundials of Babylon to the atomic clocks humming beneath our feet, humanity's quest to measure time has always been more than a practical endeavor. It's a story of connection. Every glance at your smartphone's clock carries whispers of ancient ingenuity. The 7-day week borrowed from Babylonian astrologers, the 60-minute hour rooted in their base 60 math, even the leap year correction Julius Caesar stole from the Nile stargazing priests. Our digital calendars, for all their algorithmic precision, still bow to the celestial rhythms those early astronomers first mapped onto clay tablets and pyramid walls. What's astonishing isn't just the accuracy they achieved, like the Maya predicting Venus's movements within hours over centuries, but how these systems transcended cultures. The Chinese lunisolar calendar, the Islamic Hidry moons, the Gregorian reforms spreading globally through trade and conquest, all prove that timekeeping is humanity's first universal language. Whether carved into obelisks or coded into silicon, calendars have always been bridges between earth and sky, tradition and progress, the individual and the cosmos. Carl Sagan once mused, "For small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love and precise timekeeping." In that poetic truth lies the heart of our journey. Those ancient sky watchers didn't just invent clocks, they gave us tools to navigate existence, to plant crops and celebrate festivals, to mark births and honor ancestors. Today, as Mars rovers sink to Martian sols and quantum clocks tick toward undiscovered horizons, we're still chasing what they began, not just measuring time, but finding meaning in its flow. So tell me in the comments, what's your favorite slice of timekeeping history, the bizarre year of confusion when Rome had 445 days? The way Inca Quipu knots tracked celestial events, or maybe you've tried building a sundial like those Egyptian priests. Hit subscribe to unravel more mysteries, because history isn't just about dates. It's about the moments that connect us across